have missed picking these folders, they're here. You have the students see them. Do you have it? So please fill in your feedback so we can give it back to the presenter at the end. This rock is behind or? Okay, our next speaker is Hardik Shah from Information Technology. His talk is going to be on ethnographic study on rock climbing beginners. So, forward to listening from you.
Yes, so I'm doing an ethnographic study on indoor rock climbing beginners and just about myself and small thing. And I started as a software engineer, more into more depth first thinking, and now I'm a designer and trying to think about human subjects and trying to find opportunities and trying to innovate in products and design interfaces and experiences for users. Yeah, so just my very first experience with rock climbing, and I started doing that in a co-op 6 months back, and it was a really different experience in the sense of one of the very few sports where you like fail and fail often. You fail 90% of the times, but when you are done like doing failing, and once you make a climb, you feel like you've done something very great. That's pretty much seeing what the example shows actually on this slide. Uh, and so here are my research goals. Started with just wanted to improve my ethnographic research skills and wanted to practice more concepts on cognitive psychology. I got a good opportunity back in my first quarter, but as my very first quarter as an international student, and so much was thrown at me, just couldn't get that thing done right. So I wanted to take one more stab at doing ethnography and getting it done really well. And also wanted to contribute to the RIT rock climbing community and trying to improve that experience of indoor rock climbing beginners. So something about ethnography. So ethnography is a research method where you actually probe users and you try to probe them for the cultures, trying to probe for opportunities, trying to probe for the behaviors, and you also try to probe their activities at a particular place. And that's a part of as far as what the startups use in the Silicon Valley. That's part of the lean startup process, and they use this process for new product development and innovation. And if you look at this figure, it consists of a lot of research methods, like observational research, and a lot of methods are there in observational research, interviews, and even photoethnography study. And when you combine all these research methods in all these three areas, you get some great actually insights. And from those insights, what you get as a customer, how does a customer look like? His background, his culture, his way of interacting with objects, and some very good problems in that domain which the customer faces in some real usage scenarios. So just fast forward to the location. So we have a red barn over here at RIT, and it's on the west side of the campus behind Rivenol. It's actually a barn. It's not a rock climbing site, so you can assume it's actually for storing livestock, not for. But here's the history actually, and I'm not sure what's before then, but back in 1982 they converted the red barn into a rock climbing site. And so it's a 100-year-old place, and lacks a lot of modern amenities. And there's a very little heat insulation, and lacks plumbing, a lot of amenities. And there's a very, I'd say, there's a big thing like you always have to dress, because whatever the outside temperature is, pretty much it's the same inside. And so we have like two areas. One is upstairs. They have top roping, and they have bouldering, and downstairs is just bouldering. And so I'll start with my research. The very first method I did, went to that place and started doing a bit of shadowing. And shadowing is a research method where what you do is exactly these three folks are doing. Just you watch, you observe them, and you just observe them. You don't stare at people, you don't intimidate them, but you actually watch their activities, watch their behaviors, and keep taking notes, a lot of insights. And so here's what I actually found about rock climbing and just the experience. And what I figured out was, like indoor rock climbing beginners or like in general about any of the climbers, they walk in with buddies. And to them, climbing just starts with buddies. They're the best companions for them. And the entire place in the Red Barn is incredibly social. It's a great place for knowledge, technique, for beginners if they want to leverage, if they don't know it, they can leverage from social learning. And so observation and social learning becomes the key. And talking about the ambience, there's friends, there's music, conversations, and challenges, and that's the definition of fun. And mobile device is one of the very few places, like where like mobile devices are shunned. Like climbers come in, they leave their backpacks outside and even their phones. And so you can assume you can have more fun without your phones and your laptop machine and everything. And so they don't care. They care about more about fun and like they don't have health and physique on the agenda. And yeah, and about the location, so if you go downstairs, like I said, it's a barn. They have a lot of weather constraints and they have limited heaters set up over there. And hence, the weather becomes a very big factor for the experience of indoor rock climbing beginners. Like I said, like on the upstairs, because of the same weather which is there outside, actually it prohibits climbing. It prohibits top roping. It prohibits bouldering, and hence a majority of climbers prefer to climb downstairs doing bouldering. And so sweatshirt is sort of like mandatory during winter and also becomes a preferred accessory. And because of the location constraint, there is no running tap water, neither washing sink. And so that was about shadowing. It's my second research method I used, which was contextual inquiry. Just a small introduction to this method. Here you watch the user, you probe the user. But what you do is, you go deep down into their activities. What are they doing? What are their goals? What are they trying to do? What are their actions? And you watch them, and once they have done, and you watch them in the context of the location where what you're trying to research. And you go to them and you talk to them. Like just if you can walk me through, the kind of the activity you were trying to do, what you were looking for, and from that you get a lot of more insights. So here's what I found actually. So I figured out, climbing is it's a very complex activity, When you start to do a climb, maybe a particular climb, if you choose to do it, you gotta read it, you assess it, you're trying to ensure your safety so that you don't fall off, you're trying to execute your moves right, you're trying to also identify a lot of problems, like for a particular part of the climb, if you get stuck, maybe what other alternative might work. So also when you're trying to climb, it's really complex, you're trying to figure out a lot of options, how to make that climb. So part of it involves problem solving, and then you're getting exhausted as you start doing climbing, and towards the end, you end up like you gotta gamble for completion. Either you might be able to do it gradually or just gamble. You try to leap and try to get your climb done, and so that's a sport actually. So getting exhausted is totally fair. That's a part of the sport. And weather also plays a very important factor, as I said, because of the location and the weather constraints. But a lot of times, people get exhausted not because of the weather, because of their incorrect technique, because climbing has a technique, and weather shares a very big blame than it actually deserves. In talking about activity in climbing, majority of rock climbing beginners or maybe overall rock climbers, they spend a lot of time observing actually. They're getting exhausted, they're trying to recover, and so they're spending more time in observation and recovering than climbing. A lot of attributes are attached to a buddy and a group, and what I figured out was usually talking about a beginner or any other climber in a group, that activity of an individual is more consistent with the goals of the group, as you would have imagined. But they also look more relaxed and they have fun and they're high in observation. This is in very contrast to individual climbers who are geared more towards achievement. They have a fixed agenda on their mind, do a fixed set of climbs. And so they have a fixed they're more geared towards achievement. And this is my third research method, non-directed interviews. sort of like introducing this method, I get the user in action, pop them a lot of questions, and keep it more open-ended, so that I don't want to walk them into what I want. I don't want my bias to get into the research and just open the interview to talking about anything about that activity and problems they face, and just again taking a lot of insights out of it. So from the learning activity, I learned beginners just want to have fun. And they look at the sport as a lot like there's fun and there are a lot of challenges. They also learned that they're not really high on like learning. They figured out learning is part of the fun when they go to do the climb. They don't actually refer to any kind of resources before they actually go into climbing, any kind of resources on the internet or maybe on YouTube. And so I figured out, there's no big secret for climbers, and this is coming from all the beginners, like you just need to have a regular beginner climbing routine, and you keep fighting with failures, and that helps improve a lot of rock climbing. And I'm also glad that, I made one of a prototype actually, and I ran it across with my subjects. I'll just show you the prototype, and I'm so glad that it failed. This is a small mobile prototype. It's running on the browser, but I made it run in a iPhone 5, a mobile phone, and I showed them, assuming this is an app, an app which actually gives you some courseware, some lessons, and then you can walk through some of the lessons, and if you want to learn more. And the kind of insights I got was when I walked them, like, what if you have this, and how do you feel about it? It's like, who cares actually? We just want to have fun. You don't want to take lessons. We're not serious about this. You just want to have fun in this activity. They want to have challenges, they want to have fun, and they want to figure out everything by themselves. So I'm glad that an experiment failed. And so here are some quotes actually I got from them, Okay, I'll just walk through. And so I figured out, one of the other things was, the design of the climbs in the red barn, especially the beginner climbs. That has a huge impact on the success and overall motivation of beginners. And this came from the feedback from beginners, indoor rock climbing beginners, as well as a wellness instructor, but they're not happy with the kind of design of the climbs because it doesn't have a natural progression for a beginner to an intermediate to an advanced climber. And so a lot of beginners, they feel like they're frustrated that they're just not, they fail with a majority of the beginner climbs, and only some of the beginner climbs they're able to make. So there's a lot of so there's this natural progression which is missing. And also some hidden benefits I figured out, like beginners typically, as found from the typical research methods, they don't have any goals for health and physique, but just hidden benefits, once you get into this routine of climbing, it definitely improves your strength and physique. And the other impact of weather was, it was also a big reason behind a lot of injuries at the rock climbing center. So one of my other research method, I did a survey, and I did that to get more on demographics, on getting specific numbers, and so I did a survey with like 49 responses, got like 37 from Reddit and 12 from Rock Climbing Club. And I figured out a majority of the audience in rock climbing here at RIT is between 18 to 20, and the second being 21 to 23. The majority of them in this age group, they have more motivation oriented towards their attitude or challenge, or having the hope that they would become something. And their hobbies this was something interesting. Their hobbies was rock climbing itself. Again, giving me the insight that it's just about fun. They're not looking to like literally improve their performance. They just want to have good fun at that time. And the technology habits, they use more phone as opposed to laptop, like texting more, and followed by email, and the minimum internet usage is 4 to 6 hours. It's something more which is coming on the like the rock climbing activity from the surveys. Majority of them, they had the goal of like improving their climbing. They wanted to have more fun, and the last thing was on their mind was physique benefits. And the majority of them preferred a buddy, and the climbing routine involved more bouldering. And again, if you draw back because of the climate restraints, it prohibits climbing upstairs during winter. So all you can afford is bouldering downstairs. And tracking, and when asked, how do they track their progress, majority of them say, we just self-evaluate. I try to make certain climbs and I see if I'm able to make it. And try to get some feedback from Buddy, and some say I just don't track. And so the top three constraints, again found was like weather and the location. Second was the design and the variety of routes. And the last was exhaustion on account of weather, maybe scale and strength. So just combine all of these research methods and just gaining insights, common insights from them. So here I'll walk you through some problems I figured out about the user, typical rock climbing beginner, and the kind of scenarios they walk through. So the typical problems common across all of these research methods when they had problems with location and weather constraints. They had on account of no insulation and inadequate heating equipment at the location, they had no water supply, and these constraints also made them prone to injuries and overcrowding. And the second was design a variety of routes, and they had exhaustion due to incorrect technique, weather, and inadequate strength. And so this informs my persona, what a typical persona of an indoor rock climbing beginner look like. And I'll just walk you through one persona just coming out from all these research. So this is Andrew Burnett. He's an undergrad student. He's age of 20 years. He's studying computer science at RIT. And his motivation in life is, you gotta try. You'll miss 100% of shots you don't take. Typical hobbies is rock climbing and video games. He usually keeps in touch with friends and what's happening on the campus on his phone. Laptop is his work machine for assignments and programming. And it was a couple of weeks back that his buddy Alex introduced him to rock climbing. And so far, the activity has been a great learning experience and fun so far. So Andrew likes rock climbing at RIT Red Barn in free time and prefers Alex's company for the activity. And some use case scenarios which will walk through the problems I talked about, and the kind of actions a typical persona has against these problems. So Andy likes the music in the barn and joking and having conversations with his buddy. He's amazed how incredibly social and energetic this place is, but also faces several constraints in this activity. Andy faces a hard time protecting himself from the harsh weather from the Red Barn, which Red Barn exposes him to. These extreme conditions, prohibit any climbing upstairs, and hence he can only try bouldering downstairs. He avoids climbing with a sweatshirt and carries a water bottle to keep himself hydrated. And he experiences varying levels of challenge with beginner routes. Particularly, some routes have confused him with his progress in climbing. And Andy's biggest physical challenge has been exhaustion and recovery, particularly due to the harsh weather limiting his energy in the activity. And so that's pretty much about it. And so this research informed me about the problems faced by the indoor rock climbing beginners. I figured out what a typical persona will look like and the kind of problems he faces through the scenario he walks through. Just the future plan in my research, because it's still in progress, it's not completely done, but I have a part of it done, and I guess I need to get a good solid point of view of the Red Barn stakeholders and facility administrators and recreation. And I'm also looking for more problems affecting the persona, and maybe try to prototype or propose a solution for the problem to improve their experience. So that's it. I'll be back.
Questions?
Let's start with a question really about the study, and then I'm more interested in once again why you did the study as a case study, just as an exercise, an ethnographic study, perhaps. But just about the study, do you get the sense from your research that the folks who use the Red Barn, despite the problems, so to speak, the lack of insulation and heating and all that they embrace that and would prefer that to some sort of upgrading of the facility because of its, rough hewenness and authenticity, and keep the bag out at the edge of the Red Barn. In other words, might they prefer that to having some modernized indoor climate-controlled type of climbing facility?
Yeah, some of them prefer it, but talking specifically about the beginners, actually, what they preferred was at least at least the minimum expected, that their expectations was they can progression, like they can improve, have more fun, and also, they are assuming, that their activity, they wanted to have fun in their activity, these climate is a really big constraint. So for these, talking about just the beginners actually, they just, these were the typical problems faced by them. But if once you go up the scales, maybe if you look at the intermediate or the advanced climber, they talked about lead climbing, they're having more logistics, they also, because they have a different goal actually, in the sense, they want to go outdoor, they want to scale up their skill level with rock climbing. So in the survey they did talk about, getting some logistics for lead climbing, and maybe, sort of like having a progression from the red bar to an outdoor facility so that they can take their skill away. But just to answer your question, it's more applicable not to my persona, the typical beginner, but more towards the other end of the scale.
Turns to my other question. This is really just my sense is that rather than your personal interest being rock climbing per se, you were using this as a case study to do the various techniques of ethnographic study. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess both actually. So rock climbing to me personally, because I have a motivation, in the sense being a designer, these are some great challenges in problem solving, and I guess this is a great space, how maybe human subjects actually take away take these challenges on, because my personal experience has been, like I said, 90% failures. That's definitely not a good motivation built into a sport. But despite of that, like these climbers come in at this facility, so it was both, both trying to look for an opportunity at this space and also my interest in this sport.
So, and you're in the Masters of Information Technology?
Yeah, so
and in designing apps or electronic technologies?
yeah, I do that, but it's more research driven, like because starting from one of my specialization is HCI.